Alrighty, everyone. Welcome back to In Depth with David. I am out of my darkness retreat, as some others in the NFL world like to say, and I'm putting out another podcast here. Just getting back from the grind. I believe I have not done a podcast in 6 months, so it's just my annual once in 6 month podcast. We're joking around about before we started. But as you saw by the title, today is going to be a good episode because we're going to be recapping the Dolphins versus Patriots game this past Sunday night. Dolphins came out of Foxborough with the win. New England falls to 0-2 on the season for the first time since 2001. We're going to be talking all about that, and I'm so happy to be joined by my good friend Ricky here to help me recap this. Ricky, how are you doing today?
Good. Sorry about the camera situation. Just doing webcam. Just had to get some work done, so we're on here. But pretty solid. People that know me know. Admittedly, I am a Dolphins fan. I do love the team, but I think that there's a lot to critique on their end, in particular Tyreek Hill. And I obviously do love the Patriots. It's just a split love based on geographic locations, like growing up in both places, stuff like that. But always a good matchup. Yeah, going to be great to talk about this game. A lot of good and a lot of bad. And I feel like both teams, I think there's some stuff with the Dolphins that I've been thinking about that I'd like to speak on too. So, yeah, let's get going.
Yeah, so for the second straight week, the Patriots lose a nail biter, this time 24-17. As we all know, in the first game of the season, it came down to the wire against the Eagles. Patriots had the ball at the end with a chance to drive down the field and win the game. Mac Jones fired a pass that should have hopefully been completed to Kayshon Boutte at the end, but he could not get both feet in bounds, so the Patriots turned the ball over. This week, again, we'll get into the whole game, but the Patriots ended up losing at the end. The final play, or the final important play of that game Sunday night, was the epitome of what sports are all about. Game of inches. Cole Strange was just inches away from getting that first down, as ruled by the refs. Yes, if you didn't watch the game and you are living under a rock and you don't understand what I'm talking about by Cole Strange being the reason the Patriots lost the game, we'll get into that as well. But yeah, I think that was a good way to sum it up. Belichick always says that really the first 4 weeks of the season are an extension of the preseason, where you really don't know what type of team you have and what your potential is as a organization or as a roster until about maybe around Halloween every NFL season. So, I think that goes both ways. Like you said, both the Patriots and Dolphins didn't play anywhere near clean games. I think had this been a clean game for the Dolphins, they easily would have blown us out. But, we made some good plays. We made a lot of bad plays, but fact of the matter is we're 0-2. We have 15 more games to try and turn the season around, but we put ourselves in a bad hole to start the year. But the year is far from over. But from what I've seen these first 2 weeks, there's a lot of optimism. But I think all of us agreed that the Eagles' loss was a moral victory because we went toe-to-toe with the defending NFC champions. So, we lost, but there's a lot. No one expected us to come in and win. And there's a lot of good to take away from that game. That could have been a win. But this game that we played Sunday night, I definitely don't view the same way because we just had too many crucial errors and too many bad plays that really just dug us in a hole in that game. So I can't personally view it as a moral victory. And things are going to have to change pretty quickly because just the same story as it's been in the post-Brady Patriots, which we'll get into also later, where you just think this team is giving you enough false hope to that the idea of that, yeah, we'll come back in the end and win it, just like all the glory days from 2001 to 2019. But this Patriots team has just struggled post-Brady to get that magic, and I think that just makes it so we as fans should appreciate the 20 years of dominance that we had just that much more, because these last 4 or 5 seasons have just been mediocre. But we're spoiled. We're all spoiled as Patriots fans. But if we want to turn this season around, we gotta get things going next week because we still have so much to clean up.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the point about the Eagles game being like a moral victory. I think that was actually a very enjoyable game to watch as well. It was very competitive, and yeah, I think there was a lot to take away with that. I mean, a lot of people, even the sports media, agreed that even though it was a loss for the Patriots, it wasn't really a loss fully. This game was a lot tougher to watch for a lot of reasons. Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely second that. I think the defense again was solid, and they did the best they could. I'm especially impressed by Christian, Gonzalez for coming in the first two games as a rookie. Definitely showing that was a good pick. I like to see that, and I think the younger defensive guys, same with like Uche and stuff like that. Those guys have been really good. Bill's definitely, and we can talk about Bill maybe later too, because I know there's a lot of criticisms for him, and Bill O'Brien, Bob, and the rest of the coaching staff. I mean, I definitely think like the defense and certain defensive players were highlights this game. Judon had another sack, to name that. But yeah, I agree with that sentiment that this game was definitely like a legitimate, loss. There wasn't really a lot of redeeming factors. Um, the defense did do solid, which is kind of expected under a Belichick team. We'll have to just see how that continues to go and how they contain quarterbacks moving forward. I mean, next week could be a winnable game given who they're playing, but right after that, you have the Cowboys. So you're going to have another team that their offense is off to an electric start, like over 60 points their first two games, which is very good. So that's going to be a tough. And then right after the Cowboys, I believe they play either the Bills or Dolphins again. I don't know, but we'll talk moving forward later on. But defense, they got to stay solid, and for offense, yeah, there's just a lot of problems. But yeah, we'll get into that for sure.
Yeah, and I think that we knew coming in this year that the way the team was built, that we were just going to beef up on defense like we've done the last few years. I mean, I think the one constant for the Patriots, probably the last few years, like starting with the last couple of years of the Brady era and then into this post Brady era, the defense has always been solid. It's always been respectable. And the way this team is built is we know we can't compete with most of the offenses in the NFL, but we're going to do everything we can to beef up on defense and slow down other offenses so our offenses don't have to do as much to win games. And our defense has definitely held its own so far to start off the year. I think put up a great performance against the Eagles, only holding them to 18 points on offense, 24 points to the Dolphins. But this is just definitely more of a frustrating loss because, as we talked about, it was just right there for the taking. And we just had two timely turnovers as we were driving down the field that, just derailed drives. And that's just another story of the Patriots last year, just beating ourselves with dumb turnovers. And it's just so strange because the teams that we grew up watching with the Patriots were just so disciplined, and Belichick just would not tolerate turnovers. And I'm not saying he is tolerating turnovers now. It's just the last few years we've just had so many games at the end come down to the fact that it's the reason why we didn't win because we turned the ball over at the wrong time. We did that twice on Sunday night, so that's what it came down to. But let's just get into the dynamics of this game a little more here. Definitely tip our cap to the Dolphins. I was joking around watching the game with friends. It was like watching the Dolphins on offense. It was like they were playing Madden with like all the pre-snap adjustments they were doing, like all the motions they were doing. Credit to them. I mean, I think that's how they run their offense. I don't think they do that against just the Patriots, but it seemed like 90% of their offensive snaps always just started with someone in motion before the snap. So, definitely caused some misdirection. Definitely confused the Patriots a few times on defense, and obviously it worked because they got the win. So, credit to the Dolphins for doing that. And just they're a well coached team. I'm pretty high on Mike McDaniel. Yeah, they didn't have the best game I've ever seen offensively. Tua, not the best stat line ever. 21 for 30, 249 yards, one touchdown, one pick. He is now obviously 5-0 against Bill Belichick and the Patriots in his career, but I do think that that was definitely not the best game Tua's played against us. I think the best game Tua probably has played against us was that opening game last season. This game was just kind of more of an average Tua game, but again, he did more than enough to win. And credit to that offensive game plan because it did enough for them to get the victory.
Yeah, that's for sure. I definitely think I try to watch most Dolphin games. I know last week even was a much better performance from him offensively, and the whole team really. I think credit to the defense. I mean, again, they did allow those yards in the air, and they did allow Mostert. I mean, that he definitely had a game for on the ground side of things. I think he was the leading rusher. I don't know last night if anyone passed that. I think he had 161 yards, which was best. I think outside of him, it was Henry and McCaffrey were the other two that surpassed like 120 plus. So he had a really good ground game. I think that was something the Patriots defense was a little rough on, and I know last year they had struggles with that as well with containing the rush a little bit more. I think the pass defense was pretty solid and did help contain. Although again, Tua and the offense did still have a good game. It was definitely more restricted. I personally thought the Dolphins would score like 30 plus points this game, just given that offense. Tyreek Hill had well under 100 yards, which is very good to see, quite frankly. And I don't know if Waddle. I'm trying to think. I don't think Waddle had a ton of really significant plays. I can't. No, he didn't score that passing touchdown to a hat was Tyreek. So I don't think Waddle had a touchdown or anything like that. I think Mostert was definitely their player of the game, in my opinion, for what he did on the ground. And then Van Ginkel on the defensive side of things, really. I mean, he's been a guy for a good 3-4 years. I mean, he was there when they had that Fitzpatrick led team a few years ago, and he was I think a rookie that year or second year. And he's been really solid. So he was great for them defensively. But yeah, I think with the Dolphins, the Patriots defense definitely contained them a lot better than I thought they would. But Tua still had a decent game. I agree with you on that best game being that same game last year. Um, this was definitely good, but not his best. And I think his stat line, quite frankly, was pretty comparable to Max. And we'll probably get into Mac and his game, but not a amazing game from Tua, which I was kind of surprised by, quite frankly.
Yeah, and just flipping on the other side of the ball, which you touched upon a little bit with the Patriots defense. I thought they played a good game. Wasn't a great game, but shout out to Christian Gonzalez for having another heck of a game to start his career. Had his first career interception last week, his first career sack on Hurts, and did a heck of a job shutting down who a lot of people think is the best wide receiver in the league, Tyreek Hill. Held him to 5 catches for 40 yards and just one easy little touchdown at the end of the half. But I thought the defense had their lapses in judgment, as I just talked about with all the motion. They kind of got confused by that on a few plays. Jalen Waddle had a solid game, 4 catches for 86 yards. Other than that, though, they really shut everyone down. Besides, of course, Raheem Mostert on the ground. He had that big run that almost pretty much that ended up being the game-winning score at the end of the day in the fourth quarter when Raheem Mostert just busted through the middle for about a 30, 40-yard touchdown. Again, Pat's defense has lived up to the hype so far. They're keeping us in these games when the offense couldn't do anything. So like we've just said so far, this game easily could have been a blowout if the Patriots defense was also underperforming. But the defense kept us in this game, definitely. And, it's just interesting, too. I mean, credit to the coaching, too. Give some credit to Belichick, or both the Belichicks and Mayo. Because honestly, I feel like ever since 2018, the Patriots have had Tyreek Hill's number. I think he's only had one big game against us, and that was the first ever Brady Mahomes matchup, like 5 years ago, when Tyreek Hill in that game had 3 touchdowns and I think 200 receiving yards. But other than that, every time we face Tyreek Hill, we've shut him down. So give some credit to Belichick, too, for having Tyreek's number because, if you let him do anything, he'll make you pay. I mean, we just saw what he did in Week 1 against the Chargers. He had over 200 yards receiving. So I thought the game plan was good defensively, and we exceeded expectations as for what we could do with the Dolphins coming in. We all know how explosive the Dolphins offense is. So it wasn't the best game we've ever seen from the Patriots defense, but they did just enough to keep us in it. Got a turnover at the right time and held their own against a team that a lot of people think could make some noise in the playoffs.
To go back to on that Mostert, he actually had 2 touchdowns. It was 121 yards,
That's
18
right.
carries, 2 touchdowns. That was I was thinking he had two, and then to the point of Waddle. Waddle had 86 receiving yards, but it was relatively quiet, and there was that injury scare. I think that was in the fourth where he kind of grabbed his leg. He did walk it off; it was fine, but he did have a solid game. I had thought so, and partially, I think that's probably because Gonzalez was primarily on Hill and is definitely already showing he's solid. I mean, 40 yards is fantastic to limit that. But yeah, Mostert was definitely their player of the game. I knew he had the 1 touchdown for that large rush, as you mentioned, which I was going to bring up too, and then he had that additional touchdown later. So, and he was, I believe he was with San Francisco before
Yes.
Miami, and he was really solid when they made that Super Bowl run back in 2020. So that was definitely a good pickup for Miami. I remember being particularly intrigued by that, and it's looking pretty solid so far. He's already having a solid start. So yeah, he definitely was impressive across the board, and yeah,
They're just flipping the ball on the Patriots side of the offense. I think that again, I didn't really have any problems again for the second straight week with any of Bill O'Brien's play calls. I think he again it's a little foggy, but I've never been a big fan of the screens. I think we're always due. I think most teams are due to call a few screens a game. So I don't love those calls, but I don't. It doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator is. I would just say that I don't like those calls in general. So that's not a slight at Bill O'Brien. Obviously every offensive coordinator we've watched the Patriots have calls those plays. So nothing against that. I think the play calling was fine. Just we'll talk about it now. It's just Mac Jones had no time to throw, so it's really hard to criticize the play calling when your quarterback has no time to throw the ball. But I thought Mac Jones had an not an excellent, I would say a really good game Sunday night. Obviously, the one interception was a very bad throw, and that cost us some points, at least 3 points that we should have had. Um, I didn't like the decision there to test Xavier Howard and Devontae Parker, and obviously Xavier Howard, one of the better corners in the league, made him pay. But other than that, Mac Jones had a 74% completion percentage. He's getting the ball out quickly out of his hands. Shades of Tom Brady. That was the bread and butter of the offense with Brady, and their center is getting the ball out of his hands in under 3 seconds or less. And yeah, Mac Jones on Sunday consistently made lemonades out of lemons. Excuse me. His stat line similar to Tua's, as we talked about, or as you brought up. He went 31 for 42, 231 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. But the yards, people talk about the yards and the touchdowns, but I just think that was super impressive that he's able to get 31 completions on that game Sunday night, just given how little time he was able to throw the ball. He did a great job rolling out of the pocket, making things happen with his legs. So I think this was another great game for Mac. He just didn't get the support he needed. I know there was some talk on Twitter, which we'll get into this too, after we benched Demario Douglas, having Juju Smith-Schuster take the role in the slot that Douglas was playing in for the early part of the game. And obviously those are two different types of players, right? Where Demario Douglas is a smaller guy, a little bit more shifty and speedy. Juju's bigger and doesn't have as much speed or explosiveness. So people had some, inquiries and some problems with us doing that, which I can understand. But, I think the game planning was fine. Devontae Parker, it's good to have him back. He had 6 catches. The tight ends were great. I'm really glad to see our offense starting to run through the tight ends again because, as we know, that was the bread and butter of our team in the early 2010s, running those 2 tight end sets. Hunter Henry, solid game, had a touchdown. Probably shouldn't have counted his touchdown because he did block a guy more than 5 yards down the field and then just caught it. So that probably shouldn't have counted, but he continues to have a hot start to the season. Mike Gesicki with some catches. And yeah, I think that especially with the current state of our team, it would make the most sense in the world for us to run the offense through the tight ends because those are just quick, easy targets for Mac to hit if he has no time to throw the ball. So I think we're top 5 already in tight end usage through 2 games, which is just such a breath of fresh air after what we put up with for the inconsistency in tight ends for the prior 4 or 5 years before this, right after Gronk retired. So that's good to see. But yeah, overall, not too many big qualms or complaints about how the offense played Sunday night, just besides obviously the biggest elephant in the room being the offensive line needing to perform better.
Yeah, I definitely think to that point too, the tight end usage is solid to see. I know last year Hunter Henry, I forget who the other guy they had for as a
Johnny
tight end.
Smith.
Yeah, Johnny Smith had a very mediocre like Patriots run, so I honestly forgot he was even on the team. Um, but yeah, Hunter Henry in 2021 also was a big reason for like Mac's early success that first year. That was a really good connection. It's been good. He already has 2 touchdowns through 2 games, which I like to see that. I think Hunter Henry is a really solid tight end, and with LA, he had that on the Chargers. He had that borderline Pro Bowl level play, and I think he's still really solid and he's in his prime. So I actually really think that is a positive. I think, and again, as a Finns observer and fan, I was very happy with the Gesicki signing as well. I think he's been really solid with the Dolphins again for a while. He was on that team even when they were horrible back in 2020, and him and Devontae Parker, who are ironically enough both Patriots, really carried that team and some of those Dolphins teams about 4 or 5 years ago that were very weak. Um, and he's been pretty solid, and I like his presence in the locker room and his optimism. I do think his comment about it's only September 17th was a little concerning. It might be kind of a residual thing from being on the Dolphins and being like, oh, we've been down before. But he's a really positive guy, and I like his presence, and I think Hunter Henry's the same. So to your point, I agree. I think having that tight end usage be high is really positive and is very reminiscent of a bygone but beloved era, in that Brady era in the early 2010s. So I like to see that. And Hunter Henry is definitely, in my opinion, the best tight end we've had since Gronk, because there hasn't been a lot of good there. I know in 2020, I forget who we even had back like a few years ago. I think Hollister was on our team at one point. I can't even remember some of the tight ends that were in that post Brady or end of Brady era. But it's good to have Hunter Henry, and I think Gesicki's also been pretty decent with getting open. So I'm optimistic about that and that connection with Mac, because it's clear that it's there again, and that was huge in 2021. So I'm excited to see where they go.
And it's funny too because Hunter Henry already has as many touchdowns this season as he had all of last season. So offense, that's all that you need to hear to be convinced that this offense is just going to be way better than the offense we dealt with last year. And I know that this is almost 10 years old. This is 10 months old, but Hunter Henry caught that ball against the Minnesota Vikings on Thanksgiving. I just need to make that clear.
Oh yeah, I know he did. I remember that. Yep, that was a touchdown.
Anyways, staying on the offensive side of the ball, an up-and-coming rookie so far for the Patriots, Mario Douglas, had a very unfortunate mistake on Sunday night. He was off to a hot start in the game in the first quarter, getting the ball a lot, making some stuff happen with his feet. The yards after catch is just such a big potential positive factor for him in this league that I think he's honestly going to be a home run hit for the Patriots. I hope he is, because obviously we are notoriously known for not being able to draft wide receivers. But what I saw from him in the Eagles game, what I saw from him Sunday night, I'm just so excited for Demario Douglas. But at the end of the first quarter, he made a nice catch, cut inside towards the middle for the first down, and then a player on the Dolphins, I'm not sure who, came from behind and stripped the ball out of his hands, and the Dolphins recovered, and the Patriots turned the ball over. And as soon as I saw the Dolphins defender coming from behind him, I unfortunately knew it was coming. That's just such an easy play. And it's such a hard play if you're an offensive player, because you're not really supposed to look, you're taught not to look really behind you too much. But that's just a tough lesson for Demario Douglas to learn to just make sure he protects the ball better because I think we all saw that coming from a mile away, him getting stripped there. Heads up play by the Dolphins defender, saving a big gain. Dolphins recover. And as soon as that fumble happened, I knew that Demario Douglas would not be playing the rest of the night. And now this is what I'll pose as a question to you, is that a lot of people on social media are upset that we benched Demario Douglas after that incident, saying that we should have kept him in. We needed some spark in our offense, and he's a dynamic skill player. We don't have many players like that. Why did we bench him? What are your thoughts on that, on the benching of Demario Douglas? Because in my opinion, I expected it, and I have no problems with it. You say what you want about Belichick, but there's one thing he's been in the 23 or 24 years he's been our head coach, and that's he's been consistent. Where if you make a mistake, you're going to get benched, and that's just, is it hurting the team's ability to win? You can make that argument, definitely. But at the same time, there are things that are just as important, in my opinion, as winning games. It's coaching people and holding people accountable so that you can have the best team that you can possibly have. And the fact that Demario Douglas is going to go through that, I think he'll come out of this being a better player than he started, and that now he'll, I hope this doesn't ruin his confidence, but I hope with this whole situation, he'll learn to be a little bit more careful with the ball and take more of an emphasis on protecting the ball as he's running. But people online were saying, why did we bench him? This is stupid. Bill only cares about his ego. He doesn't care about winning. But me personally, I have no problems with the benching. I mean, yeah, it hurts the team when he's off the field, as we've seen so far in the first two games. But, hopefully it doesn't happen again. Hopefully this was a lesson that Demario Douglas learned.
Yeah, I mean that play by Bradley Chubb to force that fumble was also a very solid play on Chubb's end. That was very intensive. That not every defensive player would have made. For one, I don't know how I feel about the benching, just partially because I think they probably could have used that offensive spark, given the anemic responses of the other receivers throughout the game. It was very slow going for them. Um, and I also kind of am confused because, Zeke had that fumble in the first game and really didn't face any repercussions. And again, you could argue it's because he's a proven player that's been in the league significantly longer. So Belichick probably thought it was just kind of a one-off thing. Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about it entirely. In some ways, I think it's good for a rookie just out of understanding. And I think I'm almost fine with it just, again, because of him being a rookie. It's good learning. But I think if he were a multi-year player, I'd probably be frustrated by the benching. I think as a rookie, it's good because you get disciplined once, and you're not probably going to make that mistake again. And I think him and Booty have both had good learning experiences in the last two games, and I know Keyshawn is a player too, where people are particularly excited about there being a potential there, even though he was drafted lower, just based on some preseason stuff and training camp stuff. So I think Douglas and Booty both have had those moments, and while it's embarrassing, I think you can move on from that and get better. So I do think the benching was ultimately good given his rookie status, but I think if he was a multi-year player, I would question it. But I still think when players make really bad plays, there is a call for that. And honestly, if Belichick benched Zeke for that fumble, I wouldn't have been entirely mad, given the fact that could have given the Patriots more points there, and they only lost by 5. So as much as people wanted to blame Mac for that, I think a lot of the blame for that loss could be placed on that Zeke play, because that was a pretty foolish play. And I know that was last week, but tying into this, I think sometimes Belichick's benchings can be questionable. We've seen it happen in the past, but this one made sense for sure.
Yeah, I just had flashbacks when we benched Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl. That's probably the most questionable benching.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going. That was a very could potentially detrimental. I mean, I don't, who knows, but I still don't understand that.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to sum it up, where it's just holding people accountable, especially if you're a rookie. And Belichick's always done that. And, there's levels to it too. Like, you're not going to you're not going to bench your quarterback for throwing an interception because you can't do that. But like, yeah, you can bench a rookie running back or rookie wide receiver for making a mistake, and just it's keeping the coaching element in the game because yeah, all the analytics I think say that or whatever will say you got to keep Pop Douglas in the game. He's an impact player. He's a game changer. Like why would we bench him? But if he gets right back in the game after fumbling, how is he going to learn from anything? Because it's like, oh, he just picks up where he left off. Like, no, he took. I think they cut to him on the sideline holding the ball as he was standing there. So he's taken this learning experience in stride. He had a very mature answer after the game, saying that he just he owned up to the fumble. So I'm sure he'll be perfectly fine. I have no problems with the benching there, and good on Belichick for holding him accountable. And I'm sure Pop Douglas, like we talked about, is going to be a better player because of this incident. So no problems on my end with that. Another play that resulted in a turnover, which may honestly be one of probably the best special teams play I've seen in my football viewing life, is what happened on Sunday night with Brendan Schooler blocking a field goal from the Dolphins, a field goal attempt from the Dolphins. I've never seen this, and I'm sure you've never seen this at any level in football, either high school, college, or NFL. Brendan Schooler on the Patriots got a block on special teams after getting a running start on a field goal attempt. And I've never seen this done before, where you have a special teams player go in motion before the ball gets to the placeholder, and then him run right in and block the kick. And I know the commentators were all fired up about that during the game Sunday night. The crowd was fired up. This is a big play that gave the Patriots life when they were down 14 points. I think it was 14 points, like 2 scores. Everything was amazing about that play. Everything was awesome about that play. And what a moment for Brendan Schooler, who's had a heck of a first 2 years so far, with the special teams crew being mentored by one of the greatest, if not the greatest special teams player of all time in Matt Slater. So much positives to take away from that. And I mean, now we're going to see every team probably try and do something like that. There's jokes that the NFL is going to try and ban that rule as well, that players can't get a running start, because they did that when the Patriots kept on jumping over the center to block the kicks like about 10 years ago. They stopped doing that because they said the center could get hurt. Now we found another loophole in how to block field goal kicks. I just thought that was an amazing play. And that just shows, like, to anyone who keeps saying that Belichick has lost his fastball the last few years without Brady being under center, plays like that just show you that Belichick, even at 71, has still got it. And I hope we keep doing that. I'm sure you noticed, too, when the Dolphins had a chance at the end to hit that field goal from, I think, 55 yards out at the end of the game to put it away. We did the same thing with Schooler, where he had a running start to jump in, and that might have thrown off the kicker. So just a lot of good things to come from that play. And I'm sure every other team is going to copy us now, but like that was one of the most awesome special teams plays I've ever seen.
Yeah, I definitely second that. That was really cool to see live because I didn't get to, I had to kind of catch up on the game afterwards because I had a lot of commitments and things like that. I'm pretty busy, but getting to see the final, really quarter of the game where there was a lot of important moments, that was definitely a very awesome thing to see. And I think it's great to also see that the Patriots special teams through the first 2 games have looked, their special teams unit has looked a lot better than last year. I know one of the biggest complaints last year was really how wretched some games the special teams performances were horrible. So seeing plays like that, hustle plays from younger players again like Schooler, I think young guys on that special teams and defensive units have been really good so far, and I like to see that a lot of the younger guys are the ones that are doing their thing. And that was really encouraging to see, not only just because it was such a monumental thing as something you never really see, and it was just a crowd popper of a moment. Any and everybody, even if you were a Dolphins viewer, I think either way, whoever you are watching that, you have to admire that. I mean, that was just a really hustle play, and yeah, I think having that, Matt Slater still being there as an impact. I'd love to see him once he officially retires, potentially coach, whether it's the Patriots. Ideally, it's the Patriots special teams unit, but just being a special teams coach, I mean, it's clear he has such an impact on those guys on and off the field. And that was amazing to see. And I'm very happy that the special teams unit is looking, again, solid, which is something that it's typically been, but last year was abnormally bad. So it's good to see some plays like that, and that they can really force some difficult situations, kind of like the defense, where even field goals are at risk.
Definitely. Been a breath of fresh air through first two games, like you said so far, that this Patriots special teams unit is miles and miles ahead of how strong it is compared to the unit we dealt with last year, and especially, Chad Ryland, new kicker coming in, hit his one field goal. Bryce Behringer, our new punter, had a heck of a game. 4 punts, 192 yards, three of the 4 punts inside the 20. So all things are looking up with the Patriots special teams unit, and I'm just glad that we have coaches coaching in their proper areas this year rather than trying to do too much. That's definitely made a big difference as well so far through two games. All right. Now, we're going to get to this final part of the game where the drama happens. After that missed field goal that we just talked about at the end, that could have put the Dolphins up by 10. The Patriots get the ball back, drive down the field. I believe it was third and very long, and right around midfield. Excuse me. And Mac Jones connects with Mike Gesicki over the middle, who makes a crazy catch laying down on the ground to hang on, making it 4th and about 4. Then on this 4th down play, game on the line, the Patriots convert. The drive continues. The Patriots do not convert. The Dolphins win. Mac Jones gets rushed. Story of the game, no offensive line help. So Mac Jones, as soon as he catches the ball, just has to get rid of it. He flicks it up through the air, floats in the air to Mike Gesicki on the far left sideline. Gesicki catches it. Then he was wrapped up, and this is all before the marker. And it looks like Gesicki was going to be dragged to the ground. But as he's getting dragged to the ground, he makes the heads-up play to lateral to the closest guy available, who happened to be Cole Strange. Yes, you heard that right. Cole Strange, of all people, the offensive lineman, caught the lateral. And Cole Strange catches the lateral, starts trying to bury his way to the first down marker, and he's getting pushed and shoved by both Dolphins players and Patriots players. And he falls down, and at first glance, it looks like he gets the first down running off the lateral, keeping the drive alive. The Patriots crowd goes crazy. The refs signal first down. But then the Dolphins call a timeout, giving the NFL time to review it. And after about a 5-minute review, the ruling was changed, and it was determined that Cole Strange's knee was, when his knee was down, the football was just short of the first down marker, resulting in a turnover on downs. Dolphins get the ball back, and they end up winning this game. But let's rewind a little bit. That was a crazy, crazy play involving, that's not the craziest play we've seen with the Patriots involving a lateral. Obviously we all are still embarrassed from the way that the game against the Raiders last year ended. No, not much else needs to be said about that. This definitely is the first time that a game has come down to a lateral play between the Patriots and the Dolphins. We all remember the miracle in Miami. It's funny. It seems like every game in NFL history that's come down to lateral has involved the Patriots in it. And I definitely think Belichick was probably going to blow a gasket once he'd see Gesicki try and lateral the ball to Cole Strange. But we had no option at that point. It's just all hands on deck. If the lateral works, it works. But if it doesn't, at least we tried something. If you had to, getting back to the ruling, if I was forced to say whether he got it or not, I'd probably say Cole Strange was short and agree with the referees. But the general consensus is it just seems like it was too close of a call to be able to overturn it. Like, it didn't seem like there was too much evidence to overturn it. And I'm sure everyone's seen the pictures on social media. When his knee was down, where the ball is, it just looked so close. Like, I don't really know how they could have overturned it. And I honestly wish they just kept it a first down just because the NFL could have a viral clip out of that. But, yeah, Cole Strange just came up short, as weird as that sounds. Dolphins take over, win the game. And, for the third time in the last 5 or 6 seasons, for the third time in the last 6 seasons, the Patriots have end up losing a game on a lateral base play. So what are your thoughts of that whole play? Do you think that he got the first down? Do you think they should have been able to review that? Do you think think Gesicki made the right play? Do you think what are your whole takeaways on that last play?
I think to start, I think that was great on Gasecki's end to be, aware of his surroundings and do that. I mean, it could have went in a different direction where he could have had it fumbled, he could have thrown it to a Dolphins player, but looking at the field, I mean, even from the TV perspective, you could tell it was pretty open around him outside of where Strange was. So he had a good eye for where to toss the ball. It was not, well, it was a last minute decision. It wasn't awful, kind of like that thing last year's moment where there was just, it wasn't heads up. I mean, it was last minute, but there was no thought. He was clearly aiming for Strange, and Strange was clearly keen on his surroundings. So I give both of them credit for that. Um, and I especially give Strange credit because it does list, or statistically, he did get 3 yards out of that. So the fact that he was actually able to push the ball forward at all as an O lineman is really impressive. Again, like you said, another really rare, kind of like that Schooler moment, two really rare things to happen in pretty much in succession because that Schooler was right in that field goal play and then this drive following. So kind of in succession, we had two on two drives, really interesting moments. So I think the Gasecki and Strange kind of collective decision there was actually wise given the time on the clock, given the measure. It was fourth down. They had to do it. It was better than Gasecki just simply getting knocked down or trying to ground the ball or just do something to just get out of it. It was heads up. In terms of the call, I personally don't entirely know if I agree with it. I saw it as a first down. I remember saying out loud that's a first down when I saw it. I feel like it was so close at that point. I know they mentioned, it wasn't on a definitive 10-yard line or whatever. It was on kind of that inches period, so they had to kind of go off that. I really feel, and I believe it was 4th and 4 when Gasecki threw it. So if Strange got the 3 yards, so I guess they said he was a yard short. I really don't think he was a full yard short. It was definitely like a 4th and inches type situation. I mean, you could argue either way. I personally think it should have been a first down, just given the movement forward, and Strange did get a few yards out of that, so much so that it was right there. But really exciting to watch for sure, and another really rare moment that was very rewarding in a game and kind of kept the excitement levels up. Again, even though they had lost, it was nice to see some fight at that last minute, literally. Um, but yeah, I think personally, probably a first down, but I understand the urgency there to overturn that. And you could argue, again, given it's a no lineman, it is a very rare occurrence, so there's always that too.
Fun way to end the game, that's definitely for sure.
Yeah.
One of the Yeah, one of the funnier plays of all time. I think a lot of fans were just hoping that just for the heck of it, just for the fun aspect of it, just give us the hashtag fun aspect, just give us the
Yep.
first down and let the drive continue. But Patriots, as they did all night, come up short on that play. Too many just bad turnovers, bad mistakes, and we end up falling to the Dolphins by a final score of 24-17. As we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Tua Tagovailoa is 5-0 in his career against the Patriots and Bill Belichick now. So tip your cap to the Dolphins. Tough divisional loss. New England is 0-2 for the first time since 2001. We all know what happened that year, so hopefully we can replay that magic. My question is to you, why is anyone blaming Mac Jones for this loss? Because, yeah, he had the one bad throw, but I've seen a lot of people online blaming Mac Jones for this loss.
Yeah.
And they're using the stats that, the Patriots are now 7-17 under Mac Jones when they trail at any point in the game. 1-14 when opponents score 24 points. Obviously, those things need to change because those are horrible statistics, but football's a team sport, and Mac Jones, especially these first two games, has been playing his heart out and doing the best he can.
I mean, as you know firsthand, I am not the best. Not best. I am not
The
a Mac
biggest.
Jones, fan per se. Like I'm very critical of Mac Jones, but I agree with you and people in the media who are actually not blaming Mac Jones because I agree. I don't think it's his fault at all, personally. I think a lot of it has to do with the weak receiver room. And I know it's funny enough, I was actually just listening to Greg Vidar. I don't like to listen to the Sports Hub typically, but he was on, so I left it on. And he had a really interesting perspective, similarly, where he was defending Mac Jones. And I agree. I mean, a lot of higher ranking media members would say the same thing. It's not Mac Jones. As much as people want to blame him, and I have in the past when he's made admittedly horrible plays or had horrible games. These first two games, Mac Jones is not the problem. And you can tell that game one, three really solid passing touchdowns. He has 4 touchdowns through 2 games, which is really solid. I mean, you average that out, that's 2 touchdowns a game, although he only had one this past game. And he hasn't thrown a multi-interception game once, and he had a lot of those the last couple years. Um, he's not throwing, making bad decisions. And again, like you mentioned earlier, that near 75% completion percentage, that's really solid stuff. And I think on the season, it's right around 70. You kind of can't really ask for much better than that. I mean, that's really good productivity. There's that 3-second momentum, which you also mentioned earlier. That's huge. Again, very Brady esque. I really don't think the blame should be on Mac Jones personally. I think it's really more on the receivers. Although I'm a fan of Devontae Parker, again, as a Dolphins enjoyer, I loved him in Miami. He was very strongly covered by arguably the best cornerback in the AFC right now. Xavier Howard's a guy. I mean, he's a stud of a corner. So you're going to have trouble any receiver against him. But some of these other guys are struggling. Again, Douglas, there's potential there. Like you mentioned, I agree with that as well. I think there's potential there, but again, he's a rookie, so you can't ask the world from him. But some of these other receivers are just not doing it. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, there's already people saying, should we keep Juju? Is his injury a problem? And this is a really big thing to argue, given he was, coming into this season as your number one, and I say that with air quotes. So I really think this is a receiver-based, not even the tight ends. Again, we talked about them. I think really those wide receivers in particular, um, kind of a problem for Mac. He doesn't have the best weapons. I think if you had given him a Tyreek Hill and a Jalen Waddle, he'd be very good. I mean, people have to realize that he has not had a true number one receiver at any point in his career. He's had great tight ends and great running backs, but he's never had a true number one. Even Cam Newton technically had Edelman. That's number one. So there's been really nothing there. We'll have to see with some of these young guys. I give them credit, but even Parker, a number two, I think he would say that himself. And when the Dolphins had him as their number one, they were the worst team in the AFC, darn near. So it's a tough look for the receivers, and I hate to criticize them and be very, very critical, but Mac Jones does not deserve the hatred that's being levied against him this year. Like, I'm sorry, and I don't even like Mac Jones. Or I do as a person, but I've criticized him more than anyone as a player. But he's exceeding expectations for me, so good for him.
Return of the Mac so far. He's had a good first couple of games.
Yeah.
I think I read something earlier today. Is the receiver room we have as committed the 10th most drops or top 10 most drops in the league so far. So Mac's not getting too much help there. Obviously, he's not getting enough time to throw. Yeah, he's not perfect. He had a mistake with that throw to Xavier Howard, as we talked about in the game, but Mac Jones has had a heck of a start to the season, in my opinion, so far, and he is, as I agree with you, not the problem. One final point before we wrap this up. Another unfortunate statistic with the Patriots in the Mac Jones era is that they are 8-11 at home now the last 3 years, which is just shocking to me because Gillette Stadium, what we grew up with, used to be the hardest place to go into in the NFL and win a football game. Now it seems like everyone's coming in here and winning on our home turf. Similarly to how I feel with the Celtics, something has got to change with the fact that we're letting too many opposing teams celebrate on our home turf, like the Celtics did the last couple of years with the Warriors and Heat. The Patriots just keep letting any team come in here and just win. Like, I'm not saying that, there's any Gillette Stadium's cursed or whatever. It's just there's got to, in order for this team to progress in what we want it to progress into at some point, we got to take back home field advantage and make sure that they know who's boss and that when they come into Gillette, it's going to be a tough night for them. So, it just shows how much, again, we should appreciate the 20 years of dominance we have with Brady and Belichick at the helm, because I'm sure the winning percentage at Gillette from 2001 to 2019 is incredible. But, yeah, this is an awful 8-11, but, home field advantage is big in any sport, really. So I'd like to see us take that back a little bit if we want to take this next step to getting back into a contender.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially with those other, Boston teams as well. Even the Bruins, same thing. Home ice, home court, home field. It's kind of a problem in Boston sports right now. Hopefully that isn't the case with the Sox as they continue to ideally improve as well. I'm really hoping that there is something as well. I mean, I think it's key, and I think the fan base is great. Players like to make these narratives about Boston, and I could go on for hours about that. But I really strongly disagree with the sentiments of a lot of people. I see a lot of fans as well across the league really go after Boston fans, and I genuinely don't think they've ever been to or interacted with anyone from Boston, because I've interacted with sports fans from other cities, and they are not loyal to their teams. Even as somebody who considers myself a Dolphins fan, and I'm really a fan of every Miami team except the Heat. I hate the Heat. Something I notice about Miami is the fans don't care unless the teams are winning, especially the Heat. And I think that that's another thing to factor in with this home record as well. These are fans that care. So winning football at a place where people care is key, obviously. Really, any sports, the same with the Celtics. It's disappointing, and I think that should be fuel for these teams. And I don't know if I'm sure there's people that have told them these statistics. I'm sure people have told Bill and the coaching staff, and even Kraft kept a note of this. But yeah, I think something needs to change as well. And this really goes out to all the Boston teams, because we've seen it. Bruins Game 7, home ice, beaten by the Panthers. Celtics Game 7. And the Sox obviously aren't in a contending spot. But I hope that they don't wind up in that spot, given they get better down the line. But it is definitely a cause for concern, and something that I completely agree should be addressed and really seen as fuel.
All right, and with that brings us to the end of this recap, unless you have anything else you want to talk about.
Just something to note that I'm going to personally just look for going forward is just what the Patriots do with Zeke. I know he was very limited again this game. I know Ramondre had the dominant game. I love Ramondre Stevenson. I think he's a great back, and I'm glad to see him do well. He's young. He has a lot, of strength and health left. I don't know what's going on with Zeke. I just kind of am. I'm not going to say because it's game 2. He's washed. He's not doing this, but I think that's something that I'm going to personally keep to note, and I think is a good point to. I don't know how you're feeling about Zeke, but I know this game was that was really the only point that I had that I had a question, how do we address that? But outside of that, I definitely think we covered everything.
Yeah, I mean, Zeke only had 5 carries on that game on Sunday night, so that's definitely interesting. Not surprising, though, definitely, because as we know, with Belichick's head coach, if you're a Patriots running back, you could go off for 200 yards one week and then only get 2 carries the next week. I remember that whole thing with Jonas Gray the year we beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. Came out of nowhere, signed him off the street, rushed for 200 yards against the Colts, overslept the next week in practice, never saw the football field again. So just say it's always been a merry-go-round with Patriots running backs. I'll use a phrase that we used on this podcast a couple of years ago frequently. I personally don't take too much stock in that, but I hope but I'm with you. We signed Zeke for 6.5 million. I hope we use
Yeah.
him more. I think he's a good complementary back with Ramondre. I still think he's got a lot left in the tank, but yeah, I think it just all comes down to game planning. Same with Juju. I know a lot of people are kind of confused as to how he doesn't seem as involved in the game plan so far
Yeah.
in the first couple weeks, but just game planning. Is it frustrating? Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see like Juju and Zeke on the field more often. I'd love to see us air the ball out all 50 times, but trust the game plan for them, and I'm sure they'll all get their opportunities definitely. Um, Especially that we have a good competent offensive coordinator now, and Bill O'Brien, and he'll be in the room with Belichick. So yeah, I'm sure they'll definitely get their opportunities as the season goes on. But yeah, definitely would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more of them in the first in this game on this past Sunday night. Alrighty, that's gonna do it for this recap between the Dolphins and Patriots. This game that happened this past Sunday. Another tough loss, but thank you, Ricky, for doing this video with me. And I'm hoping to be able to put out a video on Thursday previewing the Patriots matchup against the Jets. Going to hopefully try and get into a groove of putting out at least two videos, 2 podcasts a week. Want to thank everyone for watching this video. Please make sure to hit that like button, absorb that subscribe button. Going to keep trying to put out more content. Love talking sports with everyone. Love just putting out videos, podcasts, talking about anything. And yeah, hopefully the Patriots can get the job done next Sunday. But that's going to do it from both of us. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you again, Ricky, for doing this with me. And yeah, we will talk to you soon. Take care.
See ya.